shall come to order.
The motion that stands before the House in this part of the evening is this House would ban social media for under 16-year-olds. And we have some excellent speakers for you tonight. On the proposition, we have Phoebe Berlet and Madeline Abagnale. And on the opposition, we have Rohan Dyca and Francesca Taylor. Without any further ado, I would like to invite the proposition bench to begin the case this evening and defend the motion that stands in their name. Hear, hear.
Okay, I'm just going to start off with some statistics. A study from 2025 found that 96% of children aged 10 to 15 use social media. The same study found that 7 out of 10 children had been exposed to harmful content. 1 in 7 children reported experiencing grooming-type behavior from adults or other teens, and more than half said that they had been the victim of cyberbullying. I don't think that any of us are strangers to the harms that social media poses. From the less heinous but still seriously detrimental side of keeping you scrolling on Reels for hours by weaponizing algorithmic technology to feed you content, to promoting particularly enraging extremist content that gets more views, to being a place rampant with cyberbullying, which can lead to depression and harmful and unrealistic ideas of body image, social media is simply a place that comes with many negative side effects. But let's take a step back. What are the particulars of this ban and what does it really mean? Firstly, what do we mean by social media? Social media includes platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, X, TikTok, and Reddit. Essentially, we're defining social media as a platform that uses algorithms to feed you content. There are some notable exceptions, mainly WhatsApp, Messenger, and more generally, educational platforms like Google Classroom. What does punishment of this ban look like? The great thing about social media, the social media ban for under 16-year-olds, is that violation of this ban doesn't affect a 15-year-old trying to get a Snapchat account. It only punishes the social media company. Okay, we're going to briefly talk about the Australian ban. In this past December, Australia banned social media for under 16-year-olds, which, as I hope you know by now, is what we're debating right now. The Australia ban fines social media companies found to be in violation of this ban up to £25 million. 3 things here. Number 1, what does being in violation of this ban look like? Essentially, the ban just requires social media companies to take responsible or reasonable steps to verify the age of users. This is really easy and accessible because it's often done through things like ID checks, which you can do virtually. Number 2, let's remember who we're actually dealing with here. Meta platforms, which includes both Facebook and Instagram, listed number 20 on the 2025 Forbes 2000 list. The Forbes Global 2000 list just basically is a definitive ranking of the largest, most powerful companies in the world. Meta ranked 20 out of 2,000. Snap Inc., the company that owns Snapchat, also listed on the Forbes 2000 list, and X is owned by billionaire Elon Musk, who is on his way to becoming the world's first trillionaire ever. And number 3, just to preempt any claims the opposition will try to make about this negatively affecting the economy, it takes Meta approximately 2 hours to make £37 million. We can always implement a higher fine if the ban is found to be ineffective, but so far the ban in Australia has removed over 4.7 million accounts, proving this ban is actually just a really successful way to get teen accounts off Instagram. But let's address the root cause here. Why do people want to have social media? I think the main reason teens in the UK want social media is to connect with their friends. Community and connection are so important to humans. We're social creatures. Here's the thing though. I bet a lot more of you have Instagram than Facebook. Why is that? Because probably most of your friends have Instagram, meaning that it's an effective method of communication. Whereas you probably know less people who have Facebook, meaning it no longer becomes an effective method of communication. The reason you probably have Instagram is because you don't want to feel left out. You want to stay in touch with people, and you feel like if you don't have the thing that everyone else has, you will be missing out. But if all your friends deleted Instagram, it would no longer be an effective method of communication with all your friends. It would become useless to you, essentially. Ergo, this ban doesn't inhibit communication or community amongst teens. It actually does the opposite. It encourages a healthier way that also doesn't give you the option to accidentally doom scroll for 3 hours. So why is the under 16 part of this ban really important? We're going to get into a subject which I frankly hate because I'm an English major, which is the best degree, but which is essential to consider, which is brain science. When you're an adolescent, both your prefrontal cortex, which controls decision making, and your amygdala, which controls emotions, are developing. This means that young teens are more susceptible to social rewards and peer pressure. This vulnerability is exploited via constant exposure to intensely addictive, algorithmic-driven platforms that promote intense social comparison. In addition, blue light and late-night scrolling suppress melatonin, which disrupts sleep. And while sleep is really essential for all of us, it's especially essential for brain growth, which teens are experiencing, and so not getting sufficient sleep significantly impacts teens' cognitive functions. So why do we need this ban? Some of you may know that the UK already has the Online Safety Act, passed in 2023, which is supposed to mean that social media companies are now legally responsible for keeping children and young people safe online. Here's the thing though, this past spring, the BBC set up 6 fictional social media profiles, 3 boys and 3 girls, all aged 13 to 15. The fake profiles were scrolled for 10 minutes per platform every day for a week. On TikTok, the girls were still exposed to worrying content, mostly on the profile of the fictional 15-year-old Maya, who was repeatedly shown posts about bullying, children who had taken their own lives, people who were terminally ill, and stories of women and children who had been violently abused by men. The BBC wrote that while 1 or 2 posts like this might have gone unnoticed, the volume that they saw during a 10-minute scroll created a depressing sequence. The BBC found that fictional 15-year-old Harry's YouTube feed showed videos reviewing knives, guns, and crossbows. And for the first time in their research, the platform displayed footage of animals being shot dead. Clearly, this is not working. Social media ban now.
I thank the speaker for their excellent address and cross the floor and give the call to the first opposition speaker to begin the case for opposition. Bench, here.
I think both sides will agree that social media is harmful. We're not debating that. Our mental health, our relationship, and even our society has had an impact from social media. But rather, I think we disagree on what the actual solution is. We would argue that a ban does actually nothing to solve the real problem. I think we all here have known someone, regardless of age, a friend or relative that's fallen for misinformation, got addicted, developed extreme beliefs, or been bullied online. And these issues don't just magically disappear when you turn 16. Rather, the problem is systemic. It lies not in the presence of young people online, but in the algorithms that prioritize engagement over well-being, as the proposition has identified, and the data harvesting models that keep all of us hooked. Every like, click, and pause is tracked, turned into data, and sold. The algorithms are designed to maximize engagement for their profits. A ban wouldn't change that. It leaves the business model of the big platforms untouched. The same companies, the same algorithms, and the same incentives would continue. So the real solution would not be a ban, but it would be to target the actual root causes why these under 16-year-olds are feeling these things and experience these things. And that affects everyone. And it would hold corporations accountable. Governments should demand that platforms explain how their algorithms work, prove their designs don't cause harm, and should enforce strict limits on data collection, especially from minors. And when companies fail to act on hate speech, misinformation, and harassment, they should face real financial and legal consequences. Additionally, a ban does little to actually improve the lives of children. Research has found that the harms young people experience online doesn't stem from it being online, but offline issues. Bullying, racism, sexism, coercion, exclusion, and body image issues existed far before social media existed. All a ban does is treat the symptoms, not the disease. And that's the view shared by the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, and by parents such as Ian Russell, whose own 14-year-old daughter took her own life after being exposed to harmful content. Even he argues that banning under 16s misses the point. It hides young people from the online world without addressing why the world would be so toxic in the first place. And the UN has found that UK children have some of the lowest well-being in the Western world. And that's not because of screen time or online bullying, because of deeper issues such as inequality, pressure, and lack of support. Banning social media doesn't fix these underlying issues, it simply shifts attention away from them. Additionally, if we ban social media for under 16-year-olds, what happens next? Teenagers will still face the same issues, they'll still experience bullying, and they'll still want to connect with friends. Only now they have to do it on unregulated platforms, behind closed doors, hidden from their parents, and lying about their age, which makes them safe. We've already seen age verification in the UK. We don't need to look to Australia, and it's been a massive failure. All you need to do is use a VPN. Companies hold our private data. Is that really an improvement of things? I think the truth is, as you've demonstrated, social media is such a big part of these kids' lives, and it's not going away. It's woven into education, activism, and even mental health support networks. As speaking from my own personal experience, I found social media to be a lifeline as someone who's got autism. I've been able to find communities that help me understand who I am and have gained acceptance in who I am. If a ban was to come in place, other girls who are that age would not be able to find that support. Overall, I think there are two key issues here at play. If we want to reduce the harm of social media, we need a real reform and corporate accountability, and a ban does actually none of this. It only shifts responsibility onto children and families. At the same time, if we want to improve the well-being of children, we must address the inequalities that make them vulnerable in the first place. That means tackling discrimination, mental health struggles, and giving young people the resources and education and support to navigate both online and the offline world safely. Thank you.
I thank the speaker for their excellent address. And now we cross the floor and give the call to the second proposition speaker to continue the case for proposition bench. Hear, hear.
I'm going to stop my speech in 3, 2, 1. I don't know about everyone else, but I am one of many people in a generation who grew up with technology deeply embedded in my life as a preteen and a teenager. I got Instagram when I was 11, Snapchat when I was 12, and Musical.ly, which is now TikTok, when I was 10. You can condemn my parents for not adequately safeguarding me from the internet, but frankly, everyone else has it is kind of a convincing argument to parents who just want you to be a happy, normal kid fit in, especially when considering they themselves did not grow up with or understand social media. We do not rely on parental discretion alone to regulate alcohol, tobacco, gambling, or driving. We set legal age limits because we recognize that childhood is a protected stage of life, one in which the state has a legitimate role to intervene. Opposition has told us that the harms of social media extend past the age of 16. This is true. I think we can all acknowledge that. But what they disregard is that under-16s are the most vulnerable group in this situation. Smoking's bad for everyone, but tobacco isn't banned for everyone. It's banned for those who don't have the capacity to fully understand the dangers of it. I, for one, am deeply embarrassed and humiliated when I open up Snapchat and see memories from 8 years ago of me with a ridiculous filter, blissfully unaware of the fact that everything I was documenting did not belong to me, but was rather being signed away to these social media companies. I didn't understand that the content which documented natural but deeply personal growing pains does and will exist forever. Social media as it exists today is not a neutral tool. It is a highly sophisticated attention economy engineered to maximize engagement, harvest data, and hold users, especially young users, online for as long as possible. Children are not simply participants in this system. They are its most vulnerable targets. Opponents of this motion will claim freedom and education, and whilst finding networks like you've talked about for yourself are so important, there are potential benefits of social media, of course. I concede this. And you can learn a lot online, but you have to wade through a lot of damaging misinformation, which can and does harm young children. Children are highly influential, and they have a deep desire to fit in. Social media platforms are designed to capitalize on this, amplifying peer pressure, normalizing unrealistic standards, and tying self-worth to likes, shares, and online approval. We see the damaging effects of this through things like the Blue Whale Challenge, which promoted suicide and led to the rise of challenges amongst death groups. This is just one of the harms. Rates of anxiety, depression, self-harm, and body image disorders amongst adolescents have risen dramatically alongside the rise of social media. You can say that these things pre-existed, but the correlation in the rise of anxiety in the light of increased social media use is undeniable. Young people are exposed daily and relentlessly to cyberbullying and unrealistic standards. In light of this, we must ask ourselves the question, not whether the benefits of social media exist, but rather whether they are worth the cost. When mental health, lives, and development of children are at stake, the answer is always and should always be no. These challenges were present even when I was growing up. But as technology advances, the risks have grown more severe. Children no longer need to actively engage in harmful behaviour to become victims of it. Say, for example, a child posts an entirely innocent selfie, and all their friends are doing it, they just think, this is cute, here's a nice filter. Through the advances in artificial intelligence, like Grok AI, that image can be taken, altered, and repurposed without their knowledge or consent. What begins as harmless participation in something everybody does can result in sexual and monetary exploitation and countless other harms. This is not a failure of individual judgment, guys. It is a failure of the digital environment we have allowed to develop around our children. When technology evolves faster than safeguarding does, it is this house's responsibility to intervene. Not only is safeguarding not developing quickly enough, it barely exists to begin with. Under the status quo, we have 10-year-olds that we've heard getting messages daily from people pretending to be their age, people who are actually middle-aged men. As much as opposition bent will tell us there is certain safeguarding in place to help protect these users, this is not the reality of the world that we live in, and we all know it. A study conducted by UNICEF, for example, found that over 50% of 10 to 12-year-olds had a social media profile, even though most platforms officially require users to be at least 13. I had one. Why is this? This is because it's laughable how effective these safeguardings are when not properly government mandated. In Australia, when there is a ban, it has been properly mandated. They have 3-factor authentication for their age checking. Snapchat in the UK confirms users primarily through self-declared birth dates and during sign-up. Asking what your date of birth is not actually a reliable metric to ensure users are 13. But frankly, without the government mandating more thorough checks and extending these to under-16s, why would these social media companies have a vested interest in keeping one of their biggest subset of users off their platforms when they can actively profit off them? Which is exactly why we as the government must promote this motion and not let children be harmed by social media companies, online predators, and even unknowingly themselves. Proud to propose. Thank you.
I thank the speaker for their excellent address. And now we cross the floor once again and give the call to the second opposition speaker to conclude the opening speeches. Hear, hear.
Run over. Somebody behind me will shout at me. Or bang a gavel very hard to do my hearing in. Thank you, Mr. President, for that lovely introduction, and the other 3 speakers forward. Has been an excellent debate so far. Now, Proposition would like you to believe lots of things about this debate, that there's lots of bad content online. I absolutely agree. And that grooming happens online. I absolutely agree. And that cyberbullying happens online. I absolutely agree. However, all of these things are completely and totally symmetric. All of these things happen without social media. We know this from various scandals over the past few years. Let's think about grooming gown scandals. We know that children can be groomed offline. Bullying happens regularly in schools. Every school has a bullying policy because it happens in schools. We know it doesn't take social media for this to happen. And as my partner speaker has said, these are problems that exist without social media. Therefore, we believe that most of Proposition's case is entirely based on the world around us, and that not everything they say is necessarily the case. When you think of childhood, what do you think of? You think of friendship, you think of community, do you think of shared joy? All of these things and more, Mr. President, are the foundations of a good childhood. We believe that social media can have a very beneficial part to play in each of these areas. Firstly, friendship. We all know how important friends, especially close friends, are in life, but most notably in childhood. I'm sure all of you can probably remember a childhood friend you had from like 20 years ago, because that left a mark on your life. And friends are important. No, absolutely not. Friends give us joy. They give us people to confide in, and they prevent us from feeling lonely. I'm sure that people at university, when you first got here, you probably didn't know anyone, you probably felt a bit lonely, but you made friends, and that made everything better. People around us, we are not lonely tonight because we have made friends with the people around us, and we are here listening to unqualified people speak about topics they know nothing about. But it is that last point of feeling lonely that I would like to dial in on. We have already heard from the 3 speakers that lots and lots of teens use social media. Loads and loads of people use social media. They use it to communicate with their friends, and not just through interacting with posts, as these social media platforms initially started as, but through private messaging, and the various channels that these apps all now provide, because they know that peer-to-peer messaging is vitally important for sustaining their apps. Banning social media for under 16s would therefore remove a key factor in connecting young people to their friends. What proposition do say that, or don't actually say, but really should have said, that other services exist, social media is uniquely positioned because it allows for more than one-to-one messaging. It creates these communities for its users around the shared topics and interests that they have. People put out a post, people can see this post, they can interact with this post, they can like the post, they can see more posts like it. This creates a community of people with shared interests, with shared beliefs. All of these very, very healthy things that we see in the real world are also replicated online. You're going to say harmful things are replicated online. Yes, I know, but harmful things also happen in the real world. On community, throughout childhood, young people start to build a community of peers and friends. We know this happens in the real world. But as the world increasingly is moving to digital, we know this is happening. We're experiencing it in our daily lives. As this happens, so too do teens' communities, with social media a key part of staying connected and sharing in the communal joy of being part of these tight-knit communities. Being able to stay connected with friends, families and interests outside of school, most of all during school holidays, affords young people a unique opportunity to stay engaged with their interests in novel ways. Being part of a community of like-minded people gives a sense of belonging, essential for identity formation and good mental health. Above all, for LGBTQ and neurodivergent teens, as my partner has explained. These people, though, are more at risk of loneliness because there are less people in the general world who are like them. Online, they are able to find these people who they might not otherwise be able to find. Mr. President, this ban will separate vulnerable people, including those suffering from abuse, from their support networks and the online spaces where they find sanctuary and safety. Now let us turn to an example to prove why the motion must be opposed. Australia. Firstly, Australia's ban has not been total, with some notable exceptions where proven harm has occurred, such as Roblox, a site notorious for child grooming. And Discord, I think we all have opinions there. These platforms claim to be gaming sites, yet they still perpetuate the same harms that proposition claim. Further, children can still access and view content on these sites when no accounts are required, which does nothing to prevent harms. Finally, specific to Australia, these online spaces can be a lifeline for children living in the outback, and taking these spaces away will have a huge negative impact on them as they are no longer able to stay connected with their friends. Taking proposition at their best, a total ban, there still remains questions over the effectiveness of age verification technology, including data protection concerns, especially for teens. Instead of proposition's case, we believe government resources could be better funneled into improving existing protections, and that for those reasons, Mr. President, I am proud to oppose the motion.
I thank the Speaker for their excellent address. It is now time to open up the debate to the floor. I'm afraid we only have time for 2 1-minute long floor speeches, so please raise your hand nice and high if you'd like to give a floor speech. Yes. Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, for the last few decades, the accessible world has been shrinking. Libraries are closing and every high street has the same 4 chain stores and vape shop. The third space, a place outside of either home or school, where children and teens can hang out with friends, is pretty much exclusively limited to places you have to spend money to enter. And it is increasingly becoming the norm for kids to be shuffled back and forth between activities by their parents. You don't need to have a social media account to be bombarded by fear-mongering news and unrealistic standards in advertising and films and video games, regardless of how many 18-plus stickers and PG ratings the government sticks on them. And loneliness and isolation might be the highest it's ever been in young people. Where are kids, especially teens, allowed to exist in, to meet new people and be exposed to new ideas? We can't justify taking away what is essentially the last free space for adolescents to explore the world beyond the 5-kilometer radius around their house, without an adult holding their hand every step of the way.
Any further speeches from the floor? Yes.
So I just kind of want to point out, like, the alternatives people would move to under the bans. Insofar as I think in any form of ban, people would both follow and ignore that ban. They are two very different people. The people who would follow that ban will probably move to different forms of communication that aren't social media. So stuff like WhatsApp or Messenger, which have all the benefits of social media insofar as, like, you stay connected with your friends and, like, the people you know without seeing all the algorithm stuff. So I think I think like just in general, WhatsApp and Messenger has all the benefits of social media without any of the actual issues. Insofar as like you can still have a community on WhatsApp, you can still have a community on stuff like Discord or like Messenger, which under the definition posed by government wouldn't count as social media. And on the topic of like they would spread harmful ideologies, I feel like that's just something you would do in any form of society. Insofar as like I don't need to go online to see racist shit. I can talk to my grandparents who are like 17 and like really racist. Like I don't think you only get discrimination on social media, which is why I think the concept of like, which is why I genuinely think that I would rather like avoid the negatives of algorithms that are specifically designed to encourage this form of discrimination and just like, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you everybody for your contributions. It is now time to bring the debate to a close, and so I would like to invite the opposition bench to give their final speeches. Here.
Thank you very much. The proposition has highlighted how children are vulnerable. I would also like to highlight that the elderly are very vulnerable and do not fully understand the dangers of social media either. They've been scammed, they've been made more extreme, and money has been taken from them. They are vulnerable. Are we going to ban social media after a certain age? Additionally, it was brought up that wanted to avoid poor algorithms that perpetuate racism. I agree. That's what we are proposing. A ban wouldn't actually change the algorithms. It would just keep them in place. If you want the social media to be better, you have to put reforms in place. You can't just hide it from a small select part of the world. You need to change it. Additionally, we've seen what happens when the government has shut down social media and the internet. In Iran, for example, social media is used by children, by adults, as a way to tell their story to the outside world, the people who are unheard and aren't listened to. And that's why we need social media to be kept up. Would Greta Thunberg be as popular if she didn't have social media when she was under the age of 16? Probably not. And I would say it's pretty good that she's influential. So thank you very much. I will yield the floor to my...
Definitely the timer to have someone shouting. Could you pass me my other notebook, please? There are a few things I'd like to add to what my partner has said and what I've said in my speech, and to respond to the proposition. Firstly, we know for a fact that social media companies such as TikTok are known to shadow ban accounts. This is the practice of blocking their content from being seen by anyone. They do this to a lot of left-wing channels, they do this to a lot of people that governments don't like. Why can't we just do this to content that is harmful to children? Why is this not possible on a user-by-user basis, which it clearly is possible? So I'm sure that the government can come up with some way of forcing companies to do this, to protect children and allow them to still gain all of the benefits from social media. Secondly, if they are able to, as the proposition suggests, put all these safeguards in place to cut the age off at 18, why are they not able to do exactly the same thing to cut the age off at 13, which is their actual terms of service use, terms of service age restriction? So clearly, there are mechanisms that we can use to prevent children who are too young to be on the apps by their terms of service policies from being on the apps, and we can block this harmful content. I'd like to pick up on what the first floor speaker said. The accessible world is shrinking. It is definitely shrinking. We see this every day. The high street is closing. There are fewer and fewer spaces for teens to hang out in real life, to meet people, and to generally be children. So allowing these online communities to happen, it definitely provides a good space, especially for the vulnerable groups that I have mentioned in my speech. It is very important that by banning social media, proposition would suggest that we are going to force these people to move to less regulated channels, to places where they are more at risk, sites like 4chan where conspiracy theories are spread daily, sites that cause real world harm to happen, just so that they can access their peer support networks that are vital to them living, to them feeling good. And I think it would be a great shame if we lost these spaces, as proposition seem to clearly want. And finally, I'd just like to, just a quick point. Education. We have excellent kind of education in schools on cyber policy and cyber safety. We need to expand these programs not just to children and not just to children at a younger age, but to their parents, to their grandparents, so that everyone throughout society understands the harms and can keep themselves safe, in addition to further government regulation of these companies. But I do not think we need to blow up the house because of a leaky tap. Thank you.
I thank the opposition bench for their excellent remarks and invite the proposition bench to conclude the debate. Hear, hear.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to reject this notion that I'm somehow unqualified to talk about this topic when I, and honestly all of us here, are actually the people that we are talking about. I have been a victim of online usage as a young age, and to be honest, I do regret that my parents weren't stricter with me doing it, and I do regret that I had access to so much readily available material. Now, I've got a couple of things to say. Firstly, on this idea about third spaces being decreased, like the online world being like the ideal third space, as we have an increasingly less accessible world. What if I take the analogy of, like, say, Amazon? You know, say you order all your books from Amazon, there's going to be less bookstores, you know? But if you maybe ban technology, then the government, other communities are incentivized to create and reopen up these other spaces, these libraries, etc. Second of all, I think the main crux of the argument that we are hearing from opposition bench is that all of this kind of happens in the real world anyway. I find it completely puzzling that you would want to multiply this and multiply the damages and effects just because it happens anyway, and especially when we're talking about things like Roblox and Discord and how this extends further to the elderly. All you're doing is reiterating the fact that social media is super damaging. Just because it's going to happen anyway or going to happen on other avenues doesn't mean we shouldn't at least try to prevent some of the things from happening. And this idea of community, I do agree. You know, I've met some friends online and it's great and there's amazing spaces. But to be honest, if we reopened up more spaces as a result of, you know, what would be a knock-on effect of making the world more accessible, then this would happen anyway. And also, I do think that it's like a null point to say that just because you don't have a LGBTQ plus influencer, that you're not going to get to see them in film or media, etc. And also, this goes on the complete other side. Just because you have communities which are positive does not mean you do not have probably 10 times more communities which are negative. I personally do not want my future 13-year-old to be part of a web forum that is promoting Nazism. So hopefully you don't want the same thing. Thank you.
Okay, well, I would love to change this motion to this house would ban inequality. Unfortunately, that's just not feasible. Like, I think a lot of the opposition's arguments are like, we need to address the root cause, which is like discrimination and inequality. I think this is just a way of lessening inequality and discrimination. Like, this debate is not about the fact if it happens, it's about the extent that it happens, the margin to which it happens. This debate is about margins. Mia, I love you. Thank you. So Rohan gave us this entire idea about like a shadow ban of like why can't like TikTok just ban like people who are actually older than 13 or younger than 13, because that's not profitable for them. Like, their reason why Meta is one of the most like valuable companies in the world is because the entire reason they exist is to make a profit. And also this like another thing about like why can't you just like block content that's really harmful or really bad, because that's the content that gets the most views, because it enrages people, because it engages people, because it keeps you on their platform, which is literally how they make money. Also, you're saying like Instagram, oh, you just use it to like chat with your friends, like it's direct messaging. It's direct messaging, but it's also like it pushes you to Reels. I just got Instagram for the first time like a month ago, and I'm amazed. Like on my telephone, it's like Reels. Not even when I'm on Instagram, it like you go to like the thing where you scroll down and it's like search which app, because I don't know where any of my apps are, and then it like just has Reels. How? I've never seen Reels. Like, I literally don't understand why it's recommended. I've never watched a Reel before except for when Free shows me them. I hate them. So stop. Like, they make money by showing you Reels. Like, it's direct messaging, but it pushes it so hard. Like, you have to resist, and like if their brain's developing, they're 16-year-olds, like it's just they don't want to resist because they just don't have the means yet. Like, this is protecting a genuinely super vulnerable group of people. And this ban just does work. Like, I'm sorry. Like in Australia, they've already taken more than, essentially, the estimate right now is around 5 million accounts, or sorry, wait, that's not the right number. Is it? Oh yeah, 5 million accounts off. So it just actually is really effective at getting people off social media. And then also they gave this whole idea about like third spaces. I just want to address that really quick, and also just like how important communities are. Communities are super important, which is why like social media promotes isolation. It makes you feel isolated when you're in your room, like in your bedroom, scrolling on Reels forever. Like you feel like you're not hanging out with your friends. Also, everyone's like, we all come to uni, we're all here, we have friends. Friends are important. Yes, because we all met everyone in person at uni. Like because there are spaces where you can meet people in person, and if you take social media away, it creates a higher demand for these places in person, which means that these places will just proliferate because then businesses can happen, libraries can happen, and they can like just profit off of that. Yeah. So. Thank you, everyone.
I thank the speakers and indeed all members of the House who contributed for that fantastic debate. It is now time to call the House to a vote. So, all those who side with the proposition and would ban social media for under 16-year-olds, please raise your hand nice and high. And all those who side with the proposition? Opposition. And any abstentions?
Liberals.
Fantastic. First of all, to announce the results of the Floor Speech Prize, the £15 Fisher and Dancer Matter and the tiny trophy, which you can come and get in a second. I'm afraid we didn't catch your name, but the person who talked about third space is in the green jacket. So congratulations. And it is now time to announce the results of the debate. This House would ban social media for under 16-year-olds. For the proposition, we had 32, and for the opposition, we had 11. Therefore, the ayes have it, the ayes have it.